Okay, so anyway, I had this friend in high school, and he was really kind of thin and dorky and not very popular, and really into science and science fiction, and had a few close friends. One of them is a friend of mine that I had in high school, and this friend of mine, I think if he'd been born a year or two earlier, he would have missed the entire computer revolution. But by some strange coincidence, this friend of mine got born right at the exact time where he was able to see everything happen from the beginning. He had an Apple II computer. He had the flight simulator Mark I. He had all kinds of games that went on throughout the years. He played first-person shooters and Castle Wolfenstein and all the rest of it. Got to be there for all of it. And back when this poor, sad guy was just a kid, I should give him a call someday, honestly, see how he's doing. He had the idea that it would be amazing if you could have a world where you are, in fact, living in the science fiction universe of Traveler or whatever other particular games you were playing just on a board. And the computer graphics got better, and then all of a sudden things got a lot better, and then things got just so cool. Hi, everybody. I'm Bill Whittle, and I am here to talk to you just a little bit about some of the things that home simulations have been doing lately, like very lately. And I just want to concentrate on two of them. So let me just set it up and show you some cool pictures. This is a home flight simulator. The wraparound screen costs probably around $3,000. You throw in projectors, maybe it's $4,000. The whole setup is probably $5,000, and you include the motion chair, it's probably close to $10,000. Now, look, $10,000 is not a small amount of money, but it's in reach. It's not $300,000, and it is a very immersive experience. There's a particular two simulations out there that I'm very interested in. One of them is called DCS. It's Digital Combat Simulation. And there are moments, not all the time, but there are moments when I can't tell if that's a real picture or whether it is a real-time game image of aircraft and so on. The other game that's interesting to me is called Star Citizen, which is in fact the thing that I was hoping for which is in fact the thing that friend was hoping for his entire life. It's an interactive universe where the level of detail is extraordinarily high. Everybody else in the game is another human being, another person. You can interact and you can live in worlds that he always wanted to live in, but that he did not expect to see and that he won't live to see in the case of Star Citizen. So, with this incredible advance of the technology of home simulations, I really have two questions for you guys. Steve, let's start with you. It's really cool. And it's very addictive. And I think it's so cool that it could be a real problem. I mean, what do you think? Do you think we're going to get to a point where these simulations are so good that simply going to be just difficult to leave?
Oh, I don't know. I'm of two minds on this one. I really am, and maybe I'll know where I fall when I'm done answering your question. I've been a flight sim guy from way back. I had Microsoft Flight Simulator on my Commodore 64, and the thing that made that game so difficult to play is the Commodore was so slow that when you're coming in for a landing, you've got maybe 1 frame per second refresh rate. So if
it's like flipping through the pages of a book, it'd be faster.
Exactly. And so if you made a mistake, it was really difficult to correct. And next thing you know, you've got the cracked windshield thing, and you and all your passengers are dead. When I abandoned Commodore, well, because they went defunct and my computer had died, and finally bought a real Windows PC, I had to go for the pricier Pentium, which was brand new, instead of the more current 486, because of Falcon 3.0, the F-16 simulator.
I spent a lot of time on that.
Me too, and it ran so much better on a 32-bit Pentium, and I was right there for the first full 3D flight simulator, which was the A-10 simulator, which if you kind of squinted, you could see that texture on the ground was supposed to be individual trees. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And now it's crazy good, and that's just on this 4K 28-inch screen that's my default monitor now. It's just amazing. I can't even imagine what this wraparound thing is going to be. On the other hand, there was an article, I think in Engadget a couple of weeks ago, about how to prepare a safe space for your virtual reality. You need like half of a good-sized bedroom to do this right, because you need space to move around, you need a swivel chair, you need a beanbag chair to fall into, you need an open door to your bathroom in case you need to puke. They had all these things listed that you still need to have a successful VR space in your home office, and it's just too much yet for, I think, the average person. Even if you do have $3, $4, or $10,000 to spend on that kind of thing, what we really need, I guess, is the Star Trek holodeck. And when we've got one of those, forget it. It's going to be Falcon 9.0 for me.
Do you think you could leave your house if you had one of those? Do you think it would impact your work or your life?
It would be me and Falcon 9.0, baby.
Scott, I've got a tougher question for you. A lot of this alternate life kind of thing started, I don't know, must be 10 years ago now. There was a game, it wasn't even a game, kind of a simulation called Second Life. And in Second Life, there was a world, and individuals would come home and they would play a character, and every other person they met in this world would also be real people in the real world. However, you got a chance to be this super buff, guy or this beautiful woman and so on. And you'd find cases of people who would simply rush home from work and then spend 6, 7, 8 hours on Second Life, and Second Life became their first life. And I don't know what happened to Second Life. It obviously kind of fell off the board. Yeah. But given the technology that we've just shown you here and the increasing reality of it, I want to ask you, Scott, it's not even a question of, do you think that this is getting close enough to reality? What if the reality in The Sims is a better reality? What kind of danger do you think that is, where, in fact, the world that you experience through computers, we're not far from this, I don't think, is in every way a better world, and you simply come out of the situation just to maybe sleep and collect your benefits, because God knows you're not going to be holding down a job if you do that.
Yeah,
What's the danger?
Take the blue pill and let's see how far the rabbit hole goes. I don't want to remember nothing. And that's how, I think that's the fear. It's that it's the Matrix. It's that you become so immersed in this alternate reality that, first of all, life itself is not going to be satisfying to you, because you can never be as good as you are in your second life, so to speak. And by the way, Stephen, you may have had a Pentium computer, but this is my Pentium computer sitting right here, and I use it. Of course, I've wiped the hard drive and replaced it with Linux. But anyway, so I think there are significant moral and questions. I think there are significant practical questions when it becomes, if you look now and you see a little kid who's got a small gaming device in his hand and is so immersed in this, he cannot hear his brothers, he cannot hear his parents, he doesn't know what's going on around him. Imagine if there was nothing going on around him, that it completely enveloped him. And it's not that far off, because even though Bill said now you could, sink $10,000 into a project like this, we know that, heavy users like Bill Whittle are going to fund the development of the $700 version of this that everybody can have, and it's going to be projected on a shower curtain in your house. So it is not that far off when we will be able to have that kind of pseudo-realism, and we're going to have to make some serious choices about which life we want to live.
Well, I mentioned two of these simulations because they just struck me so well visually. One of them is DCS, which is the flight sim, basically, and the other one is Star Citizen, which is a space sim, but also a complete world interactive. And I mentioned them both because I think they represent different futures and different dangers. I think that DCS, the flight sim, the war sim, flight combat sim, is far less worrisome than Star Citizen, because you get to go out on a mission, fly a jet you would certainly never get to fly in real life. And you get to experience more and more realistically this vicarious thrill of being a fighter pilot or doing ground attack. And furthermore, you're interacting with real human beings, and people set up online squadrons, and they behave very professionally in some cases and so on. And by the way, when the mission's over, the mission's over. In fact, these simulations are now so good that I would get one simply to train in the L-39, which I've ridden in, and every single switch works. So it's certainly an interesting flight training device. Star Citizen, on the other hand, is a little more worrisome to me, only because in so many ways it is so attractive to people like that friend of mine who didn't really have a whole lot going on in the actual world, to be able to have these visions and these futures and starships and individual people manning individual positions, and you're going someplace and you land on a planet, you meet some other real people. It's very, very compelling. And I think the thing that really snapped me out of this the most was I showed this wraparound thing. It's called a SimPit, Icarus SimPit, from a company in New Zealand. And I showed her this and some of the moving chairs and stuff. And I said, honey, I'm thinking seriously, like I may have to get one of these someday in the future. And I thought she'd be pleased because she worries a little bit about me when I'm flying. And she really surprised me. And she said, Billy, this is not for you. You do things in the real world. And I thought, wow, yeah, how about that, huh? It's more dangerous out there in the real world, but the graphics are superb. The frame rate is really incredible. And it does bring a certain element to it when respawn is out of the question. That kid, that friend of mine wants that thing really, really, really badly. We'll keep you posted. Thanks very much for joining us again. All of these Right Angle shows are made possible by the paying members at BillWhittle.com. If you are one, thank you. If you aren't one and you've been enjoying the show, come on over and chip in. It's a lot of fun. We have a great little community here, and it's an online virtual community, and I think they're awesome. So, on behalf of Steve and Scott, I'm Bill Whittle. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Your ability to empathize is startling, man.
Is it?